I've had so many different partners. For example, I had a Jordan Fisher who was a partner. He had dance experience. So
Yes.
the dancing I did with him compared to the dancing I did with David Ross, who was a baseball player, had zero dance experience, is completely different.
Right.
I'm choreographing to my partner's strengths, which aren't always like what I would do if I were choosing to do something by myself.
Yeah.
But in the sense, like, I'm now using my brain to be creative and create on other people, which is something that I didn't do when I was growing up. I didn't do that when I was training, and I found a whole new love for that. I love to be creative in a sense of like finding my partner's strengths and weaknesses, playing to the strengths, telling a story, and it's become a whole new thing because now I'm not just a dancer. I've turned into honestly more of a choreographer and a teacher, which has brought in an entirely new side of creativity that I didn't even know I had. And that's been really fun for me because I think it happened at a good time too. I mean, growing up, I'm sure you felt it. As I feel like any athlete feels it, of the feeling of going so hard at something for so long and maybe feeling burnt out and having those moments of like, whoa, this is a lot. And like, it's a lot of the same. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of like, just everything. So I feel like this kind of shift in creativity happened at a really good time for me because I think had it not happened, I maybe would have started to look. I could now direct my passion into the choreographing side of things and putting dances together and teaching somebody. So I'm grateful for that because it totally shifted.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you just said, there's a lot to take away from that. I think with your dancing, at least I'm going to play off of my experience. So in skating, I've always had someone telling me what to do. I've had a choreographer who has created my programs. My coach has directed my training. I've had an off-ice conditioner who is teaching me how to keep my body in shape. I've always had someone else responsible for my career. I was just simply the person who went out and did it. And with skating, what I loved was that sense of being able to make an entire arena full of people feel something that I made them feel. And I feel like maybe with dance and skating, like we're kind of feeling the same thing about that.
Yes.
But I think like the fact that you could take that feeling and having been told what to do, and then your new challenge is you're no longer the one who is being told what to do, but you are the one who is creating the programs and the dances, and that's just like, I would be so intimidated. I've been asked to choreograph programs and I've said no because I don't believe in my ability to choreograph. And I think people sitting at home, you know, whether it be a young entrepreneur or someone who has to go through this transition and they're not confident in their abilities, clearly you had the ability to choreograph and to coach and to instruct. So how did you find that within yourself when you'd only been on the other end of the sport for so long?
Well, it's crazy and it's so true. And I felt those same things. I was like, whoa, how? Because it's like you train all your life to be a dancer or to be a figure skater, and you get all the tools you need to do what you need to do. But no one gave me like I guess, I mean, growing up watching people choreograph and watching my teachers teach me, that is kind of my lesson. Yeah. But it's like, I didn't spend my whole life learning how to be a dance teacher. I learned how to be a dancer and then it switched. Right. But it's crazy. And
they're totally different things. People think you can dance so you can teach. And that is not the case at all.
No, it's not. And it's interesting. I mean, the level of my teaching and choreographing abilities when I started Dancing with the Stars to where they are now is a crazy difference. It's not like I started and all of a sudden it was just like, got it. Like, it took time, but it is interesting because it was always there. It was always in there. I just had to find it and I had to remind myself what I knew. And it's funny because even to this day, I'll be teaching somebody, I'll say something, I'll give them whether it's a critique or explain how to do something, and I'll literally be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that I knew that. Right. Like, I didn't even realize that I knew how to explain that the way that I just explained it. So I feel like it's a terrifying switch, and it's kind of like a weird transition. But the biggest thing I can say is, like, when you've put time and effort and energy into something that much in your life, you're going to understand so many more aspects about it that you just didn't even know. I mean, the brain is crazy. Like, there's so many things that we don't even.
You just absorb. Like, through osmosis, it's just in your head.
And it happens to me all the time where I'll say something and be like, whoa, I didn't even know I knew that. But, like, somehow it worked. But then other times I'm like, whoa, I really should know that. But, like, I just feel like it's one of those things where whatever it is that you want to attempt and that you're doubting yourself on, like, just don't. Just don't. The worst thing that can happen is that you aren't perfect at it right away, and you work on it and get better.
And then you learn.
And what's bad about that?
Not being good at something, and sometimes you need to experience, like, simple experience is really what gets you so far. I mean, I remember my first lesson that I taught. I'm teaching this kid. I'm pretty sure I was more terrified of the kid than the kid was terrified of me.
You're like, no.
Like, you don't understand. I have no idea what I'm doing right now. This is wild. But then eventually, lesson after lesson, for me at least, like, I feel like I learned how to communicate what my body knew. Yeah. And I could learn how to put it into words. Because I feel like that's really what coaching is. You got to take a physical feeling and express it to a person in, like, the specific way that their brain functions.
Yeah, because everybody learns differently too.
Yeah.
So you have to adapt for sure.
So when you're working with someone and you're trying to explain something to them, but it's not clicking. Like, for me, if I'm trying to teach a kid a double axel and I'm making adjustments to their body, but it's not going well, that starts to kind of tear away at my confidence. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know how to fix this kid. They're going to know. They're not going to trust me. So when you're working with someone new and you're trying to teach them a new skill or adjust some part of the routine and it's just not going well, how do you stay confident that you guys will, like, push through this and get to that end destination?
Yeah, that is hard because a lot of times things don't work out. And you can keep trying at it, and sometimes it doesn't click. Here's the thing that I've learned is, especially on Dancing with the Stars, because we're under such a time crunch, like, we have 5 days to learn and perfect and be confident in this new routine every single week. So I kind of have a rule of thumb. I usually figure out whether or not my partner learns by talking it out, by visually seeing something happen, by me physically moving their body how I need them to move. Yeah. So once I kind of figured that out and exhausted all the options of that step, and if it's still just not working, what I'll do is I'll make them sleep on it. I feel like, I don't know if that's something in skating, but as a dancer, I can't even emphasize how big of a deal sleeping on a step or a piece of choreography is. Sometimes just going home and letting your brain just, like, settle and not be so hyper focused on one thing. You come back the next day and it's like, whoa. And then if after that and it's still just not working, I will cut it and move on and find something else that works for them. Because in the dancing world, there are endless possibilities of movement that you can create. There's not one movement that's like, this is the only one. There's endless amounts of ways that you can move your body and tell a story. So that's where my job comes in, of like, okay, this isn't working for them, so get creative and find something that does. That still has the same impact and value, but just resonates with them a little bit more. So that's kind of the rule of thumb. I will say, like, there are times where I have gone and said, you know what, we're not going to worry about this specific step. We're going to try something different. If I had more time and we weren't under a time crunch, I definitely push it a little bit more. But unfortunately on the show, it's like, you don't have time. You just have to, like, get it in. And that sometimes does take away from, like, the learning process of, like, if we had months or endless time to get something down, we would probably push it a little bit harder. But sometimes you just can't.
I mean, for you guys watching at home, to learn a routine in 5 days, as a professional athlete, that's insane. Learning it is one thing. Making it TV ready is a completely different thing. And then on top of that, it's most likely a dance that they do not know, a style of dance that is not comfortable or familiar. That's insane to me. But speaking of time, I mean, we've talked a lot about partnering and relating to another person, but you are not a good partner if you do not make sure that you are okay at the end of the day. So with this crazy time schedule, there is so much, it's such a balancing act. I mean, when I was on tour, I would get burnt out because it would just be the same thing night after night. Those days are crazy long. How do you make sure that you aren't getting overwhelmed yourself?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that it's very important that I do check in with myself, because if I don't, then I'm just hindering myself, I'm hindering my partner, our progression. And I think it kind of goes back to the it's okay to not be perfect. My first couple of seasons, I remember.
She says with an eye roll.
I know. I'm like, I've said it a million times to myself on here, probably to every one of my partners, but it's like I can't think of another saying that doesn't really it works. And I think it's so easy to get wrapped up in like the little things to forget the big picture sometimes, and to forget like, okay, does this one little bad 20 minutes of rehearsal determine how the rest of this experience is going to go? No, it doesn't. So don't let it affect you in that way, and move on. And I really do try to take every day as it comes, because it can be a little bit daunting if you're always thinking about something that happened last week and a bad moment that you maybe had, or if you're trying to like anticipate what could happen, or is everything going to go well? And
you can't control that.
Yeah, on tour, like I remember sometimes I'd get so in my head, like I'd be so tired. It'd be the first show of a 7-show day week, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, we still have 6 more shows to go. And that's like the worst thing you can do to yourself, like anticipating yourself to be let down. So I really try to like focus on the now and just be in the moment. And then once that moment is over, don't like try to sit in it. If it was a negative moment, don't think about it. Don't like stress yourself out about it. So that's how I try to keep myself in check. I'm also very lucky that I have an awesome family, awesome husband who like have kept me very grounded and keep me out of that mode of like perfection is the only way. They really are good about being like, Lindsay, it's gonna be okay. Like, dance is not your entire life. Like, it's an awesome, and your career is not your whole life. You're still an awesome person. There's so many things about life that matter and are important. So I've been very lucky to have their support to keep me kind of grounded through that.
I think that's so important, though. I mean, saying dance is not your life, your career is not your life. I think for me, that is one of like tale as old as time. I absolutely fall into that all the time, where I'm like, skating is it. I need to focus everything on skating, or my career. This is all I have. I need to focus on this. And it's not the case. You need to have that balance. You said you're really close to your family. How do you, in that moment, when you feel like you're getting really like narrow-sighted and you feel like you're overwhelmed, how do you reset? Like, what do you actively do to remind yourself that your world is not only dance?
So one of my favorite things to do is just most of the time when I'm living out in LA or doing my work, my husband actually lives, so we're from Utah, we live here currently, but whenever I'm working, I'm usually not with my husband. So when I've had a bad day, I come home, I call Sam, and we FaceTime, and I express to him the things that are stressing me out. And typically, it kind of makes me laugh. So my husband is not a dancer at all. So when
that's amazing. Like, that's got to be such a blessing.
It is so great, because when I'm sitting there explaining to him, like, oh my gosh, my partner today, he was really struggling with the twist turn and the paso doble.
And he has no idea.
He has no idea, and he just kind of sits there and he's just like, it's gonna be okay. And as I'm talking it out with this person that I love and is my entire world and has given me so much value and just happiness, I'm talking to him, telling him about my little stresses from my day that are taking over. And I just realized, like, okay, it's going to be just fine. Like, first of all, I'm so stressed about a paso doble. Like, that's not a bad problem to have. I mean, a lot of bigger issues in the world.
Problems.
So I feel like that always helps me. He's also really great about just kind of like helping me just like keep a light kind of feel with everything and understand like there's stressing out and being like and overthinking everything does not change